Welcome to the My Budgeting Process video. Now, in this video, the goal is pretty simple. I'm just going to be walking you through how I personally have run my budget and set it up. Now, I run my budget out of YNAB. This is a budgeting app that I've found to be just quite useful. Now, that being said, you can set this up using any method which you chose. You could do the same in a spreadsheet, you can do it by hand, you can do it with envelopes. Whatever method you chose, you can still do this. I'm just going to walk you through my process using YNAB because that's what I use. At the same time, just so you know, this is not a tutorial on how to use YNAB. I'm not going to walk you through all the details. I just want to show you how my budget is set up to give you some ideas as to how to set up your own. So that being said, let's get into it. So I actually have a bit of a unique setup for my budget in that in trying to optimize my flow of money, meaning basically funding my financial force first and then spending whatever's left over, I actually went to the bank and I opened up a second checking account. Now, this checking account, I call it my holding account, and I'm just going to create a budget for it here in YNAB. So holding account, what happens here is any money I earn comes first into this holding account. So paychecks come in here, well, any source of income comes here. If my wife earns any money, it comes in here and it all stops here first. So real quickly, I'm going to add an account so I can add some money to this budget. We're just going to call it holding checking account, and we're going to say it has $5,000 in it. Okay, so in this holding account, a couple things happen. Let's say my monthly income, the average monthly income I found was $5,000. And the amount I decided that my financial force will be is 10% of this, so $500. What happens here is I do a few things. First of all, I pull out my financial force. So, create a category here called financial force. And then I'm going to create a category called living expenses. In these categories, I can then decide what my financial goals are. So me and my wife, we donate to our church. We have a fund savings, and we have investment contributions. Those are three pretty simple goals that we have. Down here under living expenses, what we have is our emergency fund actually. So we have next month, we have 1 month out and 2 months out. So this is what our holding account looks like. So now that we have our holding account set up, we're actually going to assign our money. So we decided at the beginning of this that we would have $500 as our financial force. So I'm going to take $500 and fund these goals that we have. Let's say donate to church is $200, fund savings is $150, and investment contributions is $150. Now I have $4,500 left to assign, and that is going to be next month's living expenses. It's pretty straightforward. So I funded my financial force first, and then what was left over was living expenses for next month. Now, this is in a separate checking account from my main checking, from what I pay my living expenses out of. So at the beginning of the month, I'll actually take this money and I will transfer it to my other checking account, my living expenses checking account, and that has its own separate budget. So I'm going to come up here and create a new budget. Main checking is what I call it, create plan. And in this new budget, delete all these right there. So in this new budget, I now have an account, main checking. So I now transferred $4,500 from my holding account to this new checking account, my living expenses checking account, and then I assign it to all my living expenses. So monthly obligations are here. Non-monthly obligations. Subscriptions. And at this point, I actually change it slightly from the current force exercise and the planning the budget exercise. What I started out doing is I had a life expenses category and a quality of life. So when I first started budgeting, I had each of these different categories, and then I'd have like rent, I'd have groceries, then in here I'd have car repair, medical, any subscription, Audible, YouTube, life expenses. I then have like haircut, toiletries, and the quality of life. I'd have eating out, date night, etc. So this is how I originally set up my budget. And you can do it like this and it will work great. Me personally, though, I found that over time, it was actually more stressful to budget for every little thing in these bottom two categories, life expenses and quality of life. Things like clothes, things like house items, and so on, and breaking them down into individual categories. That ended up being a bit more stressful for me than I typically liked. For some people, being very detailed reduces stress. For me, being very detailed actually increases it slightly. So I made a bit of a change here. Instead of breaking down every item in these two categories, I actually ended up creating a different category just called spending. And in spending, I had life expenses and quality of life. And the target, or the amount I assigned to each of these categories, was from the planning worksheet. Whatever that number, the total you spent in each of those categories in your planning worksheet was, that's just what I assigned to the category as a whole. And then I would just work off that. Being a little less specific actually reduced my stress, and it's worked for me. Now, that won't necessarily work for everyone. Again, if you like being more detailed, and maybe you should be more detailed when you're first starting out budgeting, give you a better idea of what you're spending your money on, as well as how much you are spending on those things. It might be smart to start out being more detailed. Now, though, I have changed the budget to be a bit less detailed on these bottom two categories and this really flexible spending, but I am very detailed in these top ones. So monthly obligations, everything has its own budgeting item in monthly obligations. And in non-monthly obligations and subscription as well. If there's an expense that comes out of these categories, usually it has its own very specific budgeting item that I've created for it. This flexible spending down here, though, it's usually pretty general. Again, this is just personal preference, though. So, couple tips for you, though, that I've found to be really useful. One is in non-monthly obligations, I actually have an item called unexpected. Basically, I'm sure that I have forgotten some non-monthly obligation somewhere. There's a large expense coming up that I have completely spaced. And the idea behind this one, this unexpected item, is I put money into it every month, planning for there to be an unexpected expense, an unexpected non-monthly obligation. And when this unexpected expense pops up, I'm like, oh shoot, I should have been planning for this. I'll pull it out of unexpected, and then I will add it to non-monthly obligations in the future. So let's say, for example, I've been funding unexpected for a few months, and then I'm like, oh shoot, I have my semi-annual insurance premium due. I'll pull it out of unexpected, I'll pay for it, and then I'll add that to non-monthly obligations so it isn't an unexpected expense in the future. And the goal is to eventually never have to touch this unexpected category. For now, though, it helps me prepare for the things that I know I've forgotten. Another tip is if you are married, to actually have some guilt-free spending down here in spending. So me and my wife have guilt-free, free for me, and guilt-free her. This, going back to principle number 5 of creating a family budget, gives some flexibility for her and I to spend money however we want guilt-free, to buy the things we might not see eye to eye on, or to just buy the things without feeling guilty about it. This guilt-free spending allows some wiggle room and some space for each of us to spend money on the things we want and not feel guilty about it. And at this point, that's really it. This is my budgeting process. So any income that me and my wife earn goes straight into the holding account. In the holding account, this is where we fund our financial force first. This is where we put money towards our goals initially, and then we set money aside that we will then transfer to our main checking account, which we'll use to pay our living expenses. In having these two different budgets and two different accounts, we are able to keep our financial force consistent from month to month. And that's really the goal of doing this. We want to be moving towards our goals every month, and this has helped us to do so. Now, like I said earlier, you can do this using any method of budgeting you want. You can do this in a spreadsheet, you can do it in a notebook, you can do it in envelopes. I'm just showing you how to do it in YNAB because this is what I use. So hopefully this has given you some ideas as how you can put together your own budget. Or maybe you've already started and it's given you some ideas as to a couple tweaks you might want to make. That being said, there is no pressure for you to do what I do. This just works for me. The goal is to find something that works for you. That being said, every person is different. What works for you might not work for everybody else. You don't have to feel guilty if your budget is different from, say, the classic 50-30-20 budget. So long as it is helping you make progress towards your financial goals, that's all that really matters. And honestly, a good budget usually is different from everybody else's because you've tailored it over time to meet your specific needs and personality. So that being said, don't be so stressed thinking you need to do it exactly like I do it, or exactly like how someone like Dave Ramsey suggests, or whatever other financial expert out there is telling you to do it this one way. There's no one way to do it. Just find the way that works for you. So just get started. Have something to work with, and then as time goes on, continue to adapt and adjust and refine your budget until it's the point where it's uniquely yours. It is your budget, and it might not look like anybody else's, and that's okay. If it works for you, that's all that matters. So good luck building your budget. Now get to it.